The Heir's Reckoning. Part 5, The Vault, Finale. The Zhao estate sprawled across 10 acres of prime Shanghai real estate, a fortress disguised as a mansion. 20-foot walls topped with security cameras, guards patrolling the perimeter, motion sensors hidden in the manicured gardens. Alexander Zhao had built his empire on secrets and paranoia, and his home reflected both. Sophia crouched in the shadows at the estate's eastern wall, dressed in black, her heart pounding against her ribs. Beside her, a security expert named Lin, recommended by David and paid handsomely for his silence, studied the camera patterns on a tablet. 30-second window, Lin whispered. When I cut the feed, you'll have exactly 30 seconds to get over the wall and into position before backup systems engage. And you're sure Victoria disabled the motion sensors in the garden? According to her instructions, yes. But if she's lying, she's not lying, Sophia said with more certainty than she felt. In the past 3 hours, Victoria had been released on house arrest, a condition David had arranged through careful negotiation and substantial bail. She'd gone directly to her father's estate, playing the dutiful daughter returning home. Once inside, she'd systematically disabled security measures in the Eastern Garden while maintaining the appearance that everything was normal. It was a massive risk. If Alexander suspected anything, if Victoria's nerve failed, if any one of a dozen variables went wrong, Sophia would be caught, or worse. But she'd died once already. What was a little breaking and entering compared to that? Ready, Lin said. 3, 2, 1, now. Sophia moved. She'd spent the last 2 days training her body to remember skills it had never learned in this timeline: rock climbing, parkour, basic acrobatics, muscle memory from a life that technically hadn't happened yet. She grabbed the rope Lin had thrown, planted her feet against the wall, and pulled herself up with strength born of desperation and determination. She dropped into the garden with barely a sound, rolling to absorb the impact. For 3 heartbeats she waited, every sense straining for alarms, shouts, the sound of guards running toward her. Nothing, just the whisper of wind through ornamental trees, and the distant hum of the city. Sophia moved through the garden like a ghost, following the path Victoria had described, past the koi pond, round the meditation pavilion, along the wall until she reached a service entrance hidden behind a cascade of wisteria. The door was unlocked, as promised. Sophia slipped inside into a dimly lit hallway that smelled of expensive wood polish and older money. She'd studied the estate's blueprints until she could navigate them blindfolded. Alexander Zhao's study was on the 2nd floor, eastern wing, overlooking the garden. The same garden where Victoria was supposed to be meeting him in exactly 12 minutes. Sophia climbed the servants' staircase, her footsteps silent on carpeted steps. The mansion was eerily quiet. Most of the staff had been given the night off, Victoria's doing again. Only Alexander's personal security remained, and they were concentrated around the main entrances and his bedroom. The study door was solid mahogany, locked with both a traditional key and an electronic keypad. But Victoria had provided the code, scrawled on a note Sophia had memorized and destroyed. She punched in the numbers. The lock clicked open. The study was exactly as Sophia had imagined, all dark wood and leather, bookshelves lining the walls, a massive desk dominating the center of the room. And there, behind a painting of a Song Dynasty landscape, was the vault. Sophia removed the painting carefully, revealing a biometric scanner and another keypad. This was the tricky part. She pulled out a small device Lin had given her, a fingerprint replica created from a glass Victoria had touched during their prison meeting. She pressed it to the scanner and held her breath. The light turned green. Now for the code. Victoria had said her father changed it monthly, but always to dates significant to his conquests. The current code was supposedly the date he'd acquired his first major company. Sophia entered the numbers. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft hiss, the vault door swung open. Inside were rows of files, meticulously organized. Sophia pulled out her phone and began photographing everything. Evidence of corruption spanning 3 decades. Politicians who'd taken bribes, judges who'd ruled in Alexander's favor in exchange for offshore accounts, CEOs who'd sabotaged competitors at his request, senators whose scandals had been buried with his help and could be resurrected at his whim. And there, in a red folder labeled Chen, was everything. Every move Alexander had made against her family. Evidence of industrial espionage going back to when Sophia was still a child. Proof that her grandfather's sudden heart attack hadn't been natural, it had been induced with untraceable compounds. Documentation of how Alexander had systematically destroyed every Chen business venture outside of the core company, forcing them to consolidate all their resources into Chen Industries, making it easier to take everything with one decisive strike. Sophia's hands trembled as she photographed page after page. This wasn't just about her family. This was about justice for dozens of victims, for families destroyed, for lives ruined by one man's insatiable ambition. Impressive work ethic, a voice said from the doorway. Most thieves would just grab what they could and run. Sophia spun around to find Alexander Zhao standing in the entrance, impeccably dressed in a silk smoking jacket, a slight smile on his distinguished face. He was in his 60s, silver-haired and handsome, with the kind of presence that commanded rooms and corporations. Behind him stood 4 security guards, all armed. "Mr. Zhao," Sophia said, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Ms. Chen, or should I say Mrs. Sterling, though I suppose that marriage will be annulled shortly." He stepped into the room, his movements unhurried. "I must admit, I'm impressed. When Victoria called about meeting tonight, I suspected a trap. But I assumed it would be the police, or perhaps your father. I didn't expect you to be foolish enough to come yourself." "Where's Victoria?" Sophia demanded. "Downstairs, in considerably more restraints than she was an hour ago." "Did you really think I wouldn't notice her disabling my security systems? I've had that girl under surveillance her entire life. I know every thought in her head before she thinks it." His smile widened. "She was always weak, too sentimental, too prone to attachment, like her mother. She's your daughter. She's a tool that failed in its purpose. Just like Marcus Sterling, just like your cousin James. All of them, disposable." Sophia's grip tightened on her phone, still recording, still transmitting everything to the encrypted server David was monitoring. "Is that what people are to you? Tools. People are, what they've always been, resources to be utilized or obstacles to be removed. Your grandfather understood that once. We were rivals, yes, but I respected him. He knew how to play the game." Alexander moved closer to the desk. "But then your father took over, with his ethics and his principles. And you were even worse. Charity initiatives, employee welfare, sustainable business practices." He said the words like they were curses. "You would have destroyed everything your grandfather built with your weakness. So you decided to destroy me first. I decided to acquire a valuable asset. Chen Industries under proper management, my management, will triple in value within 5 years. Your death would have been regrettable but necessary. Quick, painless. A mercy, really. The way my grandfather's death was a mercy." Sophia held up her phone, showing him the document she'd photographed. "I have proof. The compounds used to induce his heart attack. The payments to the doctor who falsified the autopsy. All of it." For the first time, Alexander's smile faltered. "That won't leave this room. It already has. Everything I've photographed is uploading in real time to multiple secure servers. By now, David Park has copies. So do 3 investigative journalists I've been in contact with, and the authorities." Sophia smiled coldly. "You taught me something important, Mr. Zhao. Always have insurance." Alexander's expression went flat. "Dangerous. Kill her," he said to the guards. The security guards raised their weapons, and Sophia's heart stopped. This was it. She'd been so focused on getting the evidence, she hadn't planned an escape route. Stupid, arrogant. She'd thought having the files would be enough. "I wouldn't do that," Victoria's voice rang out from behind the guards. Everyone turned to see her standing in the hallway, freed from whatever restraints her father had placed on her. She wasn't alone. Behind her were at least a dozen police officers, led by a severe-looking woman Sophia recognized as Commissioner Wu. "Victoria," Alexander said coldly, "what have you done?" "What I should have done years ago," Victoria replied, her voice shaking but firm. "I chose a different side." Commissioner Wu stepped forward, flanked by officers. "Alexander Zhao, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, industrial espionage, bribery of public officials, and about 30 other charges that will keep you in prison for the rest of your natural life." The guards looked at each other, then slowly lowered their weapons. They were hired security, not suicide soldiers. Alexander's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful, everything I did was for this family, to build something that would last. You built it on corpses and corruption," Victoria said quietly. "And I helped you. I'm guilty too, but at least I'm trying to make it right." As the police moved to arrest Alexander, he lunged toward Sophia with surprising speed. But she was ready this time. She'd died once to betrayal. She wouldn't die again. Sophia sidestepped, and Alexander stumbled past her, into the arms of two officers who wrestled him to the ground. Even then, he fought, cursing and spitting venomous threats until they finally cuffed him and dragged him away. The study fell silent except for the sound of Sophia's ragged breathing. "Are you all right?" Commissioner Wu asked. Sophia nodded, not trusting her voice. Victoria approached slowly, hesitantly. "I'm sorry," Victoria said, "for all of it. I know that doesn't fix anything, but—" "Thank you," Sophia interrupted, "for making the right choice in the end." "I'll still go to prison," Victoria said. "I deserve to." "Yes, you will, but maybe not for as long as you would have." Sophia looked at Commissioner Wu. "She cooperated fully. She helped us bring down someone much more dangerous than herself. That should count for something." The commissioner nodded slowly. "We'll take that into consideration during sentencing." As Victoria was led away, gently this time, not in handcuffs, she looked back at Sophia. "In another life," she said softly, "maybe we could have really been friends." "In another life," Sophia agreed, "we were." 3 months later, Sophia stood in the Chen Industries boardroom once again. But this time, the atmosphere was entirely different. Her father sat at the head of the table, healthy and confident, no longer carrying the weight of invisible threats. David Park was there, of course, along with the loyal board members who'd stood by the family through the crisis. And there were new faces too, reformers, ethicists, people who believed in building businesses that did more than just generate profit. "The Zhao Empire has been completely dismantled," Sophia reported. "His assets are being liquidated, with proceeds going to his victims. The files we recovered have led to investigations of over 40 public officials and 23 corporate executives. The reforms we're seeing across the industry, transparency requirements, ethics boards, whistleblower protections, they're all direct results of what we uncovered." "And the company?" Michael Zhang asked. Sophia smiled, growing faster than ever. "It turns out that ethical business practices and profitability aren't mutually exclusive." "Who knew?" There was laughter around the table, real, genuine laughter, the kind that came from relief and hope and the promise of a better future. After the meeting, Sophia's father pulled her aside. "I'm proud of you," he said simply, "not just for saving the company, but for how you did it. You could have destroyed Victoria and Marcus and James with pure vengeance. Instead, you chose justice. You gave Victoria a chance at redemption. Someone once told me that the measure of a person isn't how they treat their friends," Sophia said. "It's how they treat their enemies when they have all the power." "When did I tell you that?" "You didn't. Not yet, anyway." Sophia smiled at his confusion. "Let's just say I'm learning from future experience." That evening, Sophia stood alone in her office, looking out at the Shanghai skyline. The city glittered beneath her, like a sea of stars, full of possibilities and potential. In her previous life, she'd died on her wedding night, murdered by people she trusted. Her company had been stolen, her family destroyed, her dreams buried with her body. But she'd been given an impossible gift, a second chance. A chance to rewrite the story, to turn tragedy into triumph, to transform betrayal into justice. She thought about Marcus, now serving a 15-year sentence for conspiracy and fraud. About James, who'd turned state's witness to reduce his own sentence, and would never set foot in Chen Industries again. About Victoria, who'd received a reduced sentence of 5 years for her cooperation, and who, according to letters she'd sent, was using her time in prison to study philosophy and ethics. And about Alexander Zhao, who would spend the rest of his life behind bars, his empire in ruins, his legacy one of cautionary tale rather than admiration. Sophia had won. Not just survived, thrived. She'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into a catalyst for change that rippled far beyond her own story. Her phone buzzed with a message from David, "Dinner to celebrate. You've earned it." She smiled and typed back, "Absolutely. But let's invite my parents too. I want to spend time with family." Real family, people who loved her not for what she could give them, but for who she was. As Sophia gathered her things to leave, she caught her reflection in the office window. The woman staring back at her was different from the naive bride who'd walked down the aisle 3 months ago. Harder, yes, more cautious, but also stronger, wiser, more compassionate in some ways, more ruthless in others. She'd died and been reborn, not in some mystical sense, but in the truest way possible, by choosing to become someone new. Someone who'd learned from pain but wasn't defined by it. Someone who'd faced betrayal and chosen integrity. Someone who'd been given power and used it for justice. The heir who'd been marked for death had become the CEO, who would lead her company into a new era. And this time, she was writing her own story. Sophia Chen turned off her office lights and headed home, leaving the past behind and walking confidently into a future she'd earned through courage, intelligence, and an unshakable determination to never be a victim again. In another timeline, she'd died at 28. In this one, she'd just begun to live.